Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first episode, of FTN's new Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast. Hi, I am Aaron Schatz of FTN Fantasy and DVOA fame, and I am joined, as always, by Mike Tanier, who is now from The Messenger. We are together again for the first time. This is the all-new giant-sized X-Men #1 of podcasts. Sort of relaunching ourselves at a new home, but at the same time, it's the podcast you know and love, brought to you now by FTN. And hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. How did everybody get here today? Did you drive? Did you take the bus? Did you take the train?
I took the subway.
You took the subway to Glendale, Arizona, for Jonathan Gannon to give you a hype speech. We are literally X-Men, by the way, because now we're all on X. When we last spoke, I think we were all on Twitter. Todd, you're back. Oh, my goodness.
Yes. For those who don't know, if you're listening to this afterwards, we are going to be doing this show live on YouTube at 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursdays. It's going to be twice a week show. We're going to do Monday and Thursday. Monday, we're going to review the games of the weekend. Thursday, we're going to preview the games of the coming weekend. So every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m., the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast will be here to talk NFL just like we used to on that other site that we used to work for.
He who shall not be named.
A reminder, by the way, we'll give lots of DVOA numbers. And if you want to be able to see all the DVOA splits and everything, gradually, they are all going to be added to the FTN Fantasy DVOA page, which is at ftnfantasy.com/DVOA. And you will need an FTN Stats Plus or Fantasy Plus subscription to see all the splits. So make sure you get one of those. Before we came on, I did say to Mike, I was going to show him my new little people. He must have missed that discussion on X/Twitter. So this will not be good for those of you who only have audio, but just quickly, Fisher-Price has come up with 32 NFL team-branded Little People sets.
Wow.
So I have one of them. I got them to send me a few. This is my Chiefs set. Right?
I see Mahomes, Kelsey.
That's little Patrick Mahomes and little Travis Kelce. Hopefully his knee is okay.
Uh-huh.
So each set comes with 2 players and 2 fans.
Okay. There's no little Chris Jones. He did not. He chose not to be in the set.
He did not make the set. Some of them have generic players.
Oh my God!
And some of them have specific players. Like the Buffalo set has Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Okay. But the Patriots set is generic players. They didn't.
Wow, that's saying something about the 2023 Patriots. That's generic players.
Well, I think the Saints one is generic players also, which probably says something about the 2023 Saints.
They grabbed an old Jimmy Graham Weeble Wobble from the day and they put it in there. And
so we want to preview games for this week, but we decided we're going to skip the Thursday night game, partly because we don't know when people will be listening to the podcast, and partly because, I mean, even with no Chris Jones and possibly no Travis Kelce, do you feel bad about Kansas City's chances of winning this one? I mean, I feel pretty good. Andy Reid has a great week 1 record.
He has a great week 1 record, but that's a lot of losses to just kind of nope out. I jumped on as soon as the Kelce injury, became news. I jumped on the Lions plus 5.5.
Right, which is 4.5 now. So
it's 4.5 now. So I am riding that right now. I don't know if the Lions have a full upset, and the Lions do have problems at wide receiver. So like that's kind of overlooked when we look at the situation there. They don't have a lot of depth there. They've had some injuries, etc. Overall, though, I have a funny feeling about this one. We're going to see a close game. We might see an upset.
Well, I hope so. I mean, that'll be an exciting Thursday night if we don't have a blowout. If we have a close game, that'll be good. Right. Let's talk about Sunday's games, though. And the most important game for our playoff odds report starts the day at 1 p.m., and that is Cincinnati at Cleveland, because each team makes the playoffs about 75% if they win and about 50% if they lose in the very, very tough AFC North.
Right.
Assuming that my projections about Cleveland are correct. And of course, like I've gone on all these shows this year and talked about Cleveland and the fact that it's sort of a sample size issue, that you've got a whole career of Deshaun Watson being good and not morally good, but, on the field good.
Oh, God.
And you've got Kevin Stefanski, who's run a good offense for years now in Cleveland with bad quarterbacks.
Right.
And then you've got 6 bad games.
Yes.
And it's like, which do you think is more meaningful? Like 2.5 years of good Cleveland offenses and however many years of good Watson, or 6 bad games? And I'm going with the idea that the larger sample size tells us more. And then if you believe that Cleveland's defense will improve, and they added some good talent, and having Zadarius Smith opposite Myles Garrett should be positive. Right. Jim Schwartz, obviously I'm a fan. So Cleveland should be good this year, which means, if Pittsburgh is a little better too, that's a really good division.
Yeah. Last year, Myles Garrett, I forget how many sacks he had, 16.5. Number 2 on the team in sacks was somebody with 3.5 sacks. So when you bring in Zadarius Smith, it's not just like, okay, you're bringing in a veteran edge rusher. You're replacing sort of nothing with a veteran edge rusher, or Jadeveon Clowney in whatever state he was last year with a veteran edge rusher. That's on one side of the ball. I think one thing I noticed in the preseason, and it was much talked about in Cleveland, Stefanski has adjusted the offense a little. I think what we saw a lot of late last season, again, we probably saw Deshaun Watson, who wasn't 100% ready to go back on the field for a variety of reasons we don't want to get into. But he was running that old Stefanski offense, or some kind of hybrid, where he's out there trying to do his shotgun quick game in an offense that's built out of under center, play action, 7-step drop, rollout type of game. What we saw in the preseason, and again, that's a small sample size, was an offense that was more tailored for the things Deshaun Watson likes to do.
Yeah, I think an interesting guy to watch in this game is David Njoku, because he's been a big part of their offense in the past. Bengals were 4th in DVOA against tight ends last year, but they have 2 brand new safeties. One of the reasons why our projections aren't as high on them as some other people is the defensive personnel that they've lost.
Yeah.
And now Bates and Bell are gone, and they're replaced by Dax Hill and Nick Scott. So what if Njoku has a game?
That is a good place to look in terms of stats. I'm not that worried. I think Dax Hill was a heck of a prospect coming out. So I think that's like a succession game replacement. I like the Bengals overall. Right now, I'm leaning on the Bengals being my Super Bowl pick.
Oh, all right.
Right. A guy,
so you're a bigger believer in their defense than I am.
I'm a bigger believer in the defense. They kept a lot of guys in their front 7. There's a lot of buzz about Cameron Taylor-Britt at cornerback. Again, a lot of people liked Hall coming out in the draft last year. It's not like they had to scramble for replacements. They were planning on losing Jesse Bates, I think in part because they had planned to eventually pay their quarterback. By the way, one guy on the Browns offense I'm looking at is Elijah Moore. There's been a lot of talk about him as that all-purpose weapon. I want to see him maybe in the backfield as a third down guy, as a motion guy. I want to see if they can get out of him the things Jets could not get out of him.
Yeah, I will point out that the Browns defense last year was very poor against deep passes, and Burrow is very good on deep passes.
Yes.
So that's something Jim Schwartz has got to improve, is the Browns' ability to cover deep passes. And the Browns were also weak against wide receiver 2 last year, and I'd love to tell you how T. Higgins did against them, but in one of the games against them, he got injured on the first play. But I don't know. But Higgins over prop might be a good play on Sunday because of the Browns. Definitely. I mean, Newsome is good, but Denzel Ward is the better cornerback, and he'll be on Jamar Chase.
Right. And from a health standpoint, I know there were some questions about Tyler Boyd. They've got props up for him. So nowadays, when I see somebody on the injury report at a skill position, I check to see if the props are up. If the props are up, that means they expect him to play. The over on T. Higgins, by the way, is 60.5. That's a little high.
Oh, that is high. Yeah. He only had 49 in the one healthy game he had against the Browns last year. So I don't know if I would go it over on 60.5. That's a high over for a number 2 receiver.
Right. Another thing that just bothers me, and it's something I wrote about last year on that site, which will not be named, teams that didn't play their starters at all, I worry about them in week 1, especially against the spread and things like that. I'm not worried about the Bengals long term, but not only did they not play their starters, but they didn't have Burrow at practice for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And I have just a feeling that can impact them first quarter of a game like this, first half of a game like this, and impact them against the spread, maybe impact them early in the year where it comes out being a loss somewhere along the way.
The line on this game is Cleveland plus 2.5. So being that my projections love Cleveland this year, and Cleveland has this interesting record against Cincinnati the last couple of years of frustrating them more than other teams. I would definitely go with Cleveland plus 2.5 on this one.
I'd love 3.5. I'd love 3.5 so much. I'd love to have a field goal.
Yeah.
To mess around with. And I don't like the kicker situation in Cleveland in a close game because they had to go and scramble and grab Dustin Hopkins. I'm going the other way. I'm going with Cincinnati. Despite some, I agree with you in terms of the projection for the Browns. I do have some concerns about Cincinnati, but I have a funny feeling they can come away with like a 3-point win here.
Reminder, if you're watching on YouTube live, you can ask us questions. And, we weren't going to talk about the Thursday night game, but we have a couple questions about the Thursday night game. So let's take those. What do you think about the bet of Kansas City plus 3.5 and under 63.5 as a parlay?
I love it. It's chaotic, but it's chaotic.
Not safe. There is no such safe. If there was safe, then the house would lose on parlays and the house wins on parlays. So there is no such thing as a safe parlay bet. Do I like that as a parlay bet? I mean, there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, but yeah. I mean, that's an interesting parlay, but it's not a safe parlay. There's no such thing as a safe parlay.
I worry about what action you're getting on that, like what your money line is on that parlay. Because if you're doing that to get plus 105, I'm not that big a fan. If you're getting that at like plus 230 or something like that, but you're right.
But I think that pushes the lines. That's a push the lines 6 points each. So it's a teaser, not a parlay.
It's a teaser, so you're not getting tremendous value on that, and that would worry me because you do that to get plus 105 or whatever, and then you get stuck with a 34-31 shootout, and you're screwed.
Ken from Philly wants to know how Goff did on the road compared to at home in 2022. I will say that he was much better at home last year, if I remember correctly. But those home road splits do not tend to roll over from year to year. Okay. He'll probably be better on the road and worse at home this year. But yeah, he really did take advantage of the turf and the indoors at home last year. The whole Detroit offense did.
Let me see if I can get it here. He threw 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions at home, 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the road. Good heavens. His yards per attempt, let's go with adjusted yards per attempt, 8.77 at home, 7.11 on the road. That looks pretty significant. I hate splits like that out of the context, though. I don't know if there was a weather game on the road. Right. I don't know who your road opponents are. He
was definitely better at home, but again, those things don't tend to roll over from year to year. That occasionally they do, like Roethlisberger historically was always better at home or whatever. But for the most part, everybody's better at home. But in particular, in a dome, right? Everybody's better in a dome. Right. I'm not usually good at giving fantasy advice, but he does not listen to bad news. Wants to know about Madison or DJ Moore, and I would go Madison, because I don't think the Tampa Bay run defense is going to be great. And I've talked a lot about how Fields is not as good a passer as people think he is. So even though DJ Moore will get his as wide receiver 1, I think I'd go with Madison.
Go with Madison because I think he will just get the touches, get the opportunities. And we're not talking about Justin Fields this week. I think that time will come soon enough. But like there's only so much force feeding a DJ Moore you can do as opposed to somebody that I think is going to get 20, 25 touches.
All right. Our next game is San Francisco at Pittsburgh at 1 p.m. And Kai Guy wants to know what we think about the Steelers as a home underdog with a healthy TJ Watt. They were 8-2 straight up with Watt last season. So this is a 1 p.m. game with the 49ers and the Steelers. The Steelers are another team like the Browns that we have improving this year. That division is going to be so good. Every team in our projections averages at least 9 wins in the simulations.
Does this feel like a bad matchup for the 49ers for you, Aaron?
There's going to be pass rush, and Purdy will have to get away from the pass rush, and guys will have to get open. I don't know if it feels – at the same time, does it feel like a bad matchup for the Steelers? right? Like Pickett was better against the blitz than against the standard pass rush last year. And the 49ers have Nick Bosa back, so they only need to bring 4.
Right.
I mean, this might kind of be, that's why the over-under is so low. It's 41. So even though our system likes the over on that, like this could definitely be a game where the defenses take over.
I like the over on this.
You like the over too on the over 41.
Right. And it's one of those games where you think of it as 2 great defenses, but it's 2 really strong teams. And sometimes that means turnover, short touchdown, turnover, short touchdown, and you get way past that over and what looks like a shootout, but it was really just a balanced game. But, the other thing I think about is I think the 49ers like to get their teams unbalanced, and I think the Steelers are built to be able to maintain offensive balance.
Their running game isn't that great. Najee Harris has not been that great.
No, they got
numbers.
No, they got the
backup. Their offensive line is.
I like their offensive line this year, actually.
You do? Oh, okay.
I do like their offensive line. Yeah,
well, they have Sayamalo now.
Yeah, Sayamalo. They had a big battle all through camp at left tackle with Roderick Jones and Dan Moore. And I believe Dan Moore won the battle, but it was like, his job to lose, and he stepped up. And I think he's been okay in the past. He's been a decent player. So I like that. Also, I look at the 49ers as a team that likes to exploit not great tackling, obviously, to get that Debo and Christian McCaffrey. And I think of the Steelers as a team that's going to play defensively fundamentally sound. So that's why I'm leaning on this.
The other interesting thing is the 49ers, the last couple of years, have always had that huge weakness against the deep pass. If you can stay upright long enough to throw the deep pass, you will complete a lot of the and so I'm thinking about George Pickens and all those go routes that he ran last year. And there's Jim Steckschulte bringing up in the comments what I was about to bring up about the Niners DBs and Pickens.
Yeah, and even you put Ward against Pickett. I mean, Pickett's going to get his, I think, if the ball comes close. I think we're kind of seeing that about that guy. I don't really know much about the number 2, number 3 cornerbacks.
No, I don't remember who is the 2 and 3.
Lenoir, Isaiah Oliver, and guys.
Yeah.
So, opportunities for Deontay Johnson, the ghost of Allen Robinson, whoever else that they put out there, Farmouth potentially as well.
So what do you think about the line? It's San Francisco favored by 2.5.
I like what the commenter said about in terms of the Steelers as home dogs. I like that. I didn't come up with a Steelers and over parlay. I didn't put one together, but I might be doing the same game parlay on that one because I really, more than anything else, I like going over in this game.
Yeah, over 41. And I like the Steelers a little bit too, although, not that the 49ers are bad. The 49ers are awesome, but the game's in Pittsburgh, and the Steelers are better than I think people realize.
On record, what's your comfort level with Brock Purdy?
I'm comfortable. I think Kyle Shanahan has superpowers.
Okay. He's like the Dark Phoenix or something, though.
I think Purdy is better than Nick Mullins or CJ Beathard.
Oh, yeah, he's better than Nick Mullins.
Yeah. So as far as running the Shanahan offense. Right. Biggest 4 p.m. game, Miami at the Los Angeles Chargers. So this is the game last year where Miami was exposed.
Yes.
This was the matchup where they showed how to beat Tua, and then Tua got hurt, and we never saw what was the chess move to counter that because Tua got hurt.
Right.
So now we're going to see what is the chess move to counter what the Chargers defensive shells do to try to shut down that Dolphins deep passing game.
Right.
Plus, the whole defensive battle of this game is interesting because it's the student and the master, because Staley learned from Fangio, and now this is Fangio's first game as the defensive coordinator in Miami. So we're going to see 2 similar defensive schemes.
We have a Jalen Waddle injury to keep an eye on. We have a Teron Armstead injury to keep an eye on for the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, you got a tackle and one of the 2 wide receivers. I don't know what their status is right now. I don't think they participated yesterday. That's a big difference maker in this game. And here's one of my questions about the Dolphins, and I always have questions about the Dolphins. What do they have past Tyreek Hill and Waddle at this point?
Well, very little. Right? Cedric Wilson is, I think, wide receiver 3.
Right. Durham Smith is the tight end.
Yeah, the tight ends are not valuable. Obviously, there's a lot of running backs who are fast. I mean, they've got a stable of running backs, Mostert and Jeffrey Wilson. Braxton Berrios, useful puts out. Braxton Berrios is there.
Whenever the AFC East teams start trading their guys to each other, it's usually a bad sign, including Gesicki going to the Patriots.
Braxton Berrios. He can be like Ryan Fitzpatrick and play for everyone in
the so we know he's going to catch one shovel pass in the game. We have Berrios down. They have River Craycraft, who is my favorite D&D character. They have A-Chain. I don't know what his health status is at running back. It's increasing, I think, even more than last year, this feeling where if you can shut Hill and Waddle down, you're just going to win this game. Now, of course, shutting Hill and Waddle down isn't easy, but like the Chargers demonstrated a way of being able to do that, and you might not have Waddle. These are all very big concerns for the Dolphins.
What's interesting is that overall last year, the Chargers were not good against deep passes. They were 20th in defense against deep passes. But against Miami, that shell shut things down.
And that was what I kind of forget the game because all I remember was Herbert versus Tua and the Herbert Hive saying, hooray, we crossed the lowest possible bar.
Come on. Mac Jones is the lowest possible bar.
Mac Jones is the lowest possible bar. Bailey Zappi did not cross it. It was basically like a cover 2 shell, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think it was like the cover 3.
Cover 4?
Was it a cover 3 or a cover 2? I'm sorry that I'm blanking on what exactly the strategy was, but it was 2 safeties deep, definitely. Yeah. So it was cover 2 shell, I think, or quarters. It was 2 safeties deep. That was what was important.
Right. And if that's all it takes, honestly, it's going to be a long year for the Dolphins. Now, again, with those 2 receivers, they're going to win a bunch of games, but especially with Ramsey out indefinitely, all the value added they tried to have in the offseason, it looks like their offseason was almost a net negative.
These are the two teams, by the way, that in the new DVOA projections, the updated DVOA projections at ftnfantasy.com/DVOA, miss the playoffs. These are 2 teams that miss the playoffs despite being above average in our projections because the AFC is so much better than the NFC.
The AFC is so much better, and I was refreshing myself about strength of schedule. Everybody in the AFC East, are they still like 1, 2, 3, 4 toughest schedules? Or
yes, 1, 2, 3, 4 toughest schedules, the AFC East.
AFC East. So that's, the Bills should be able to handle that. We'll talk about the Jets and the Bills, I think, in a little bit. The Dolphins are a team that could really get pulled down by that.
Yeah. We're not talking, by the way, I just want to point out that I've so given up on the Patriots being good this year that even though your team is playing my team in week 1, we are not talking about that game.
I noticed an absence of Eagles Patriots in there. You don't feel a possible low scoring upset there?
Yeah, I do feel a possible low scoring upset. I think the Patriots are primed for a couple of those this year because again, as I've talked a lot about the Patriots, I think that they're going to go 8-9, maybe 7-10 because their schedule is so hard. Belichick is too good a coach for them to bottom out. And there's no doubt in my mind, Mac Jones will be better than he was last year with Bill O'Brien as an actual real live offensive coordinator.
Yeah, unless Matt Corral gets the job in week 3 because he's the only guy O'Brien hasn't screamed at yet. But I do I can feel in that game, I guess we're talking about it now, I can feel the Brady factor.
Right, they're celebrating Brady at halftime.
The Foxborough noise and everything. The Eagles coming out maybe not 100% ready for what that brings to the table, and then it will be Armageddon here in Philly. It'll be Armageddon here in Philly if it winds up being some 19-16 Patriots upset. I'm not betting that, but I could see it happening.
I will point out with the Tom Brady halftime celebration, they had so many credential applications that I could not get credentialed for this game.
Oh man, kick to the curb.
I had to have my assignment editor apply, and I decided I didn't want to make my new editor at FTN go through making his own account on the Patriots website and all that. I was like, I'll watch it at home, and I'll be there the following week for Miami at 8 p.m. That'll be a big game.
That'll be a big game. But yeah, your seat will be taken by somebody from Paris Vogue being like, Giselle's ex-husband gets fired. Yeah.
This week's 8 p.m. game is Dallas at the New York Giants. NFC East in prime time. Who would have ever thought?
New York market versus team that like 2/3 of the geographic area of the U.S. root for. Shocking.
And I mean, this is not an even battle by our ratings because the Giants had a much better record than DVOA last year. Mm-hmm. And then the new version of DVOA, their DVOA actually went down.
Yeah.
But they did have so many injuries last year. And so they've got to be healthier this year. They have like a new rookie cornerback starting where they had all those cornerback injuries last year. And wide receivers should be healthy, although they're all slot receivers, except for Darius Slayton. The Giants defense was interesting last year. The Giants defense was really good on third down and red zone.
Right.
Someone asked me, why am I not high on the Giants defense? I'm like, there are a lot more first and second downs than third downs. It's just a sample size thing. And the third down defense tends to regress towards how good you were overall. And this defense wasn't good overall. Although, again, injuries, right? Like they had a lot of injuries last year. And I do believe in Dable as a coach, and I question McCarthy as a coach, but Dallas is just a much better team.
The Giants just had too much work to do this year. I mean, that last season was like a very charmed season, even despite the injury, some of the things they accomplished. And you talked about rookie cornerbacks. It's 2 rookie cornerbacks for the New York Giants. Deontay Banks and Trey Hawkins, who was a revelation in camp, et cetera. But you're still talking about 2 rookie cornerbacks, especially in week 1, especially going up against CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. And so, that's not going to be an ideal matchup. And you also mentioned all of the slot receivers. They brought Cole Beasley back at some point, which I think was just
I think he's on the practice squad.
Cole Beasley is on the practice squad. And you got Paris Campbell and Wendell Robinson and Sterling Shepard.
The Giants have a good young offensive line.
Yes.
But they were 30th in pressure rate allowed last year. And the Cowboys have the guys.
Yes, have the guys.
I mean, to bring the pressure.
Yeah. And last year, Evan Neal was very hot and cold on that line. I think he'll be better for the Giants this year. I think one of the problems you have is you're going to get pressure rate when there's not a lot of people to throw to downfield. And I don't think that's changed that much. I do have a player prop here that I liked, and that's Darren Waller. And this is a alternate prop. This wasn't his regular over-under. But Darren Waller at 75-plus receiving yards at plus 230.
Oh, that's a nice payout for Waller to have a big first game.
75 yards, right. Yeah, you get 8 catches for 80 yards when he's kind of acting as the possession receiver for the Giants. Even if the game does get lopsided, he's going to like feed and like, we're down.
Well, again, they're all possession receivers. Paris Campbell, right? Like
Paris Campbell is still in the NFL. That's what's surprising. I hope for the best for the young man, but he's just, I'm guessing he's going to pull a hamstring while we're talking about it.
Also point out the Giants were 31st in DVOA against tight ends last year.
Ooh.
So maybe this is Jake Ferguson and Luke Schoonmaker, the new tight end tandem for Dallas, could have a nice game.
Right.
But I have no idea which one of them, so I wouldn't put any money on it.
Yeah, I think it's Ferguson. I'm not even going to look for props there. I have a funny feeling the props aren't there. But that's one of the keys to their offense there. They're not like replacing nothing at tight end. They were getting production from that position, and they were using it a lot in their offense. So I got to see if these young men can do that. Also wondering how they're going to mishandle their running back rotation now that it's just Tony Pollard and Tony Pollard.
Yeah. All right. I'm heavy on Dallas -3.5. That's the line. Dallas -3.5.
Yeah. -3.5 in this situation. I think we take that and run with it.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Monday Night Football. My Super Bowl pick, the Buffalo Bills, at the hottest hype team of the year, your Hard Knocks New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers. This is the most important game for Super Bowl odds because our projections like the Jets and the Bills so much.
Okay. Do you have the numbers?
No, I have the playoff numbers. Bills playoffs, 81% with a win, 57% with a loss. Jets, 72% with a win, 46% with a loss.
46% with a loss.
Yes, even if they lose this first game to the Bills, they still make the playoffs in 46% of our sims.
One of my favorite storylines that kept coming across my Twitter, is Jets fans sort of tempering their expectations after all of the stuff that you talked about, the Taylor Swift concerts and things like that, and saying, the Jets might start out 3-3 or 2-4, but don't worry about that if it happens. And I try to juxtapose that with, first of all the hype and the idea that, like, well, if they do that, that means they're losing to teams like the Bills. Doesn't that sort of by definition say, why did we do this?
It means they're a wild card team, which is an improvement on last year.
Right.
But that's the thing. Are the Jets a Super Bowl contender, or are they a wild card team? Are we talking about, like, boy, the Jets and Bills fighting it out at 11 or 12 wins, or are we talking about the Jets being like 10-7?
Right.
And their schedule is hard. Both of these teams have the hard schedules. The Jets' schedule is hard.
Right. I guess I get stuck in, is that all there is mode? And Jets fans will scream and yell and say, we've waited, 15 years for a playoff berth. It's like, if all you wanted was a playoff berth, go get Derek Carr and get your playoff berth. You're really aiming for something else here with this.
Well, Mike Renner, your new compatriot at the Messenger, picked the Jets #1 in the new Messenger power rankings.
There's one in every batch. There's one in every batch.
I mean, I've explained in some of my appearances this offseason why we still like the Jets defense so much. Yes, they were super ridiculously healthy last year.
Yeah.
But they were also had very few takeaways, and they're likely to have more injuries, but also more takeaways this year. And there's no question, even if Rodgers is an average quarterback, their offense is going to be much improved over what it was last year.
Offense should be much improved. One thing I like about the Jets defense is the sheer depth at edge rusher. And I make sure I got that in front of me.
Everywhere they have depth.
Everywhere
except
on defense.
Except linebacker.
And linebacker. But everywhere on defense, they have depth. And like just at the edges, Carl Lawson with Jermaine Johnson, first round pick last year. Will McDonald had a really strong training camp. John Franklin Myers, Michael Clemens, Bryce Huff. I see him at the bottom of this depth chart. That's a young man who can play. That's going to bode well for them. That's one of the things I have a question about the Bills. We're not going to see Von Miller this week. I think that's official that he's out for the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think he's not playing this week. Yes.
Right.
I think he's PUP'd. I think he's out the first 4.
I think he's PUP'd. They let Boogie Basham walk after a couple of years of waiting.
They traded him away for like a low round draft pick. That surprised me.
Yeah, they tossed. They didn't let him walk. They pushed him out the door. And so you're looking at Leonard Floyd, Greg Rousseau. This is not an elite pass rush. And I think one of the places you're going to try to attack the Jets is we want to see what they have at left and right tackle right now.
Yes, it's Brown at left tackle, who's 900 years old.
Yes.
And Mekhi Becton at right tackle, who's 900 pounds.
Or Billy BFF Turner, whose number one claim to fame is that he's Rodgers' BFF. So that's why he's still in the NFL. He's okay.
Do you think him and Cobb have fights over who's the BFF?
No, they agree it's Jake Kumaro.
I'm the BFF. No, you're the BFF. The Jets will need to improve their third down defense. They were 16th in third down defense last year.
Okay.
And here's an interesting one. The Jets allowed a positive DVOA on defense to only one personnel group. 12 personnel. The thing the Bills are going to use more of with Dalton Kincaid.
Interesting.
That was the one personnel group where the Jets defense was below average last year, and the Bills are going to use a lot of it.
Trying to figure out what the logic behind that. First of all, they were not facing the Dolphins with that.
Yeah, they've got reasonable safeties. I mean, the safeties are reasonable for the Jets. So it's not, it might be the linebacker, the off-ball linebacker, CJ Mosley and nothing.
Or just the opponents they face. When they face these teams with 12 groupings, it was like a strong 12 grouping.
Jets plus 2.5. It's Bills minus 2.5. Who is your pick?
Oh, God, I hate this game. I hate this game because I have this feeling. I don't have a good feeling about the Jets. I don't have a good feeling about the Bills this year. I just feel like I don't know how to describe it. This feeling like the window has been closing slowly for the last.
I keep saying this. The window is still open. This is the last year of the window. The window closes next year.
It's still open, but who is the guy that's going to put you over the top? And it was it was Von Miller. Hell yeah. This year it's a rookie tight end.
Well, I see it more like the 2006 Colts. They were there every year, and eventually it worked out for them.
Right. Okay. You know what? I'm going to take the Bills and lay the points in this one. basically because I want to watch the Rodgers narratives catch fire right out.
I'm on Jets 2.5, Jets plus
Okay.
2.5. I would rather be on Jets plus 3. But the line is 2.5, so that's what I'll take. Useful says, I don't know about the line, but pound the over. The total is 46.5.
I don't know with those defenses.
Yeah, these are good defenses.
Those are good defenses.
Our system came out with the projected total about the same this came out with this as a game you don't bet the total.
Like, I don't love these receiving cores.
Right.
Except for, I love wide receiver one. Everything else is like, this is fine. So I could see this game turning into some kind of punt-tastic punt fest. I'm sorry. Are we in Buffalo or are we in New York?
We are in New York. Well, New Jersey anyway.
We will be, yes, up in the Meadowlands. But the weather will have broken by then. I was trying to think because you know how
it's hot out there. Yeah,
it's hot out there, but it should be back to normal. You know how the Bills are in any kind of weather.
Well, hot weather.
Hot weather, cold weather, in the snow, in the playoffs. Suddenly the Bills are like, are we a dome team? No, you're the freaking Bills. In the wind, obviously. So, but it should be pleasant. It should be pleasant. So the Bills, you're going to be okay, guys.
One more fantasy question before we go. Jax M wants to know about starting Alexander Madison or Deion Jackson in week 1. I picked up Deion Jackson on my Scott Fishbowl team in case he becomes the starting running back in Indianapolis with all the wackiness going on there. Mm-hmm. But as far you don't know who's the starting running back right now, so you got to go with Madison.
Yeah, did we get a clean bill of health on Zach Moss? I think we got one.
I think he's practicing. I don't know how clean the bill of health is, but I think he's the starter.
And I'm a big Evan Hull fan. I think he's going to get his opportunities. Stick with Madison. Like, it's much more of a known commodity.
Yeah. All right. So that does it for our first episode. The Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast is on the map. Please tell your friends, get us subscribers, like the show, leave positive reviews. Let's get this sucker running up the charts. We'll be here again on YouTube at 11 a.m. Monday and Thursday. And then in your podcast feed, coming soon, links on X and Threads and Blue Sky as to where to find this as an actual podcast. And thank you for the people who left comments and are watching our first show. And we are looking forward to doing this twice a week. Just like old times, my man.
Just like old times. I got to figure out where to find podcasts now. Stitcher is gone, so
yeah, I use Apple Podcasts, so that's easy.
Okay, I see how it is. Okay.
All right, for Mike Tanier, I'm Aaron Schatz for the FTN Network. So long, folks. We will talk to you Monday at 11 a.m. when we will have a whole week of football to talk about.